Philippine Coast Guard has accused its Chinese counterpart of firing water cannon at its vessels and blocking them in the disputed South China Sea. It said this happened when its ship was escorting boats carrying supplies for Filipino soldiers stationed on one of the contested Spratly Islands. The U.S. condemned Beijing's dangerous actions, also blaming Chinese maritime militia for the incident. China has not publicly commented on the reported incident. Beijing claims almost the entire South China Sea, including the Spratlys, which is also claimed in part by the Philippines. There are also competing claims by Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei, and Taiwan. In a statement, the Philippine Coast Guard, PCG, said the incident happened on Saturday as its vessels were heading to Second Thomas Shoal in the Spratly Islands. It described China's actions as excessive and unlawful, adding that they also violated international law. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of State voiced its support for our Philippine allies. Firing water cannons and employing unsafe blocking maneuvers, PRC, China's ships interfered with the Philippines' lawful exercise of high seas freedom of navigation and jeopardized the safety of the Philippine vessels and crew, the department said in a statement. China ignores an international arbitration court's ruling that its claim to almost the entire South China Sea is ill-founded. In April, a BBC team aboard a PCG ship witnessed Chinese harassment at first hand. The South China Sea is now one of the world's biggest flashpoints, especially as U.S.-China tensions have soared in recent years. Access to these waters is key to defending Taiwan at a time when China's claims over the self-governed island have intensified. The waterways also host $5 trillion, £4 trillion, of global trade every year, raising concerns that Beijing's increasing footprint could restrict commerce. In particular, China's sweeping claims, which include sovereignty claims over land parcels and their adjacent waters, have angered competing claimants like Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei. The other countries have staked claims on islands and various zones in the sea, such as the Paracels and the Spratlys. China has backed its expansive claims with island building and naval patrols. The U.S. says it does not take sides in territorial disputes, but has sent military ships and planes near disputed islands in what it calls freedom of navigation operations. Japan, which has no direct stake in the South China Sea, also provides ships and military equipment to claimants like Vietnam and the Philippines. There are fears that the area is becoming a flashpoint with potentially serious global consequences. The South China Sea is a major shipping route. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development estimates that over 21% of global trade, amounting to $3.37 trillion, transited through these waters in 2016. It is also home to rich fishing grounds that provide for the livelihoods of millions of people across the region. More than half of the world's fishing vessels operate in this area. Although largely uninhabited, the Paracels and the Spratlys may have reserves of natural resources around them. There has been little detailed exploration of the area, so estimates are largely extrapolated from the mineral wealth of neighboring areas. China claims by far the largest portion of territory in an area demarcated by its so-called 9-dash line. The line comprises 9 dashes which extends hundreds of miles south and east from its most southerly province of Hainan. In 1947, China issued a map detailing its claims and insists history backs up its claims. Beijing says its right to the area goes back centuries to when the Paracel and Spratly Island chains were regarded as integral parts of the Chinese nation. These claims are mirrored by Taiwan. However, critics say China has not been specific about what exactly its claim includes, and that the 9-dash line that appears on Chinese maps encompassing almost the entirety of the South China Sea includes no coordinates. It is also not clear whether China claims only land territory within the 9-dash line, or all the maritime space within it as well. Vietnam hotly disputes China's historical account, saying China had never claimed sovereignty over the islands before the 1940s. Vietnam says it has actively ruled over both the Paracels and the Spratlys since the 17th century and has the documents to prove it. The other major claimant to the area is the Philippines, which invokes its geographical proximity to the Spratly Islands as the main basis of its claim for part of the grouping. Both the Philippines and China also lay claim to the Scarborough Shoal, known as Huangyan Island in China, a little more than 100 miles, 160 kilometers from the Philippines and 500 miles from China. Malaysia and Brunei also lay claim to territory in the South China Sea that they say falls within their economic exclusion zones, as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. Brunei does not claim any of the disputed islands, but Malaysia claims a small number of islands in the Spratlys.